There's nothing like the magnitude of the Indianapolis 500. And one guy that knows that and more, he is a driver in 5 Indianapolis 500s. He has also been part of the ownership of 7 different Victory Lane swigs of milk. Chip Ganassi of Chip Ganassi Racing joining me on the program. Chip, how are you?
Great, Jake. How you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm ready to go, man. I'm fired up.
Me too.
It's going to stay dry. At least this is what we're saying, right?
Right.
I want to know this first and foremost, and that is, with all of the obligations, all of the sponsorships, the dinners, the luncheons, everything that happens, I always feel like around now is kind of when you can take the deep breath, and the race is the fun part. Now, I don't have money involved in it and ownership and everything else. What about for you? At what point does it become, hey, now the easy part comes because it's just another race, so to speak?
Well, it's hard. Yeah, you could hardly say that going 500 miles around Indianapolis is the easy part, but certainly, yes. We look forward to getting the race underway. That's what we do best. But hey, let's face it. All the things that go on around the Indianapolis 500 make it the great event that it is. Whether it's the Hall of Fame dinner tonight. We have sponsors who are all starting to arrive, and they're excited to be a part of the greatest spectacle in racing. All these things that go along with it make it the Indianapolis 500. It would be great to turn it into, some people would like to see us just turn it into another race, but it's not just another race. Let's face it.
You have 2 drivers. Obviously you have 3. Kiffin Simpson, I think, has really emerged into solid young driver that has kind of sponged everything that you guys have given him, right?
Yeah, qualified 7th, right.
And then you have 2, obviously, in Scott Dixon and in Alex Palou, that, at least from the outside, Chip, they appear to be unflappable. But what about from the inside? What is it about, for all 3 of your drivers, but certainly with the accomplishments of Scott and Alex Palou, what is it from what you have been able to see that make them different?
Well, I think, let's face it, there are lots of drivers out there that can win races, but there are very few drivers that are champions. And I think that's a different thing. Drivers that are champions come onto a team, and they lift everyone. They bring out the best. People say, well, they're the best driver, but you know what? The fact of the matter is they bring out the best in the rest of the team. People like Scott and Alex make us all stand up a little straighter, make us all work a little harder, be a little more diligent, that type of thing. They bring out the best in the people around them. That's what makes them champions.
You are someone, and you can offer, I think, from an ownership standpoint, Chip Ganassi, a perspective that many of your colleagues or competitors have, but not all of them, and that is that you can relate to what it's like to being a driver. Like I said, you started 5 Indy 500s from, back in the first half of the 80s. Were you more nervous going into a race morning as a driver or an owner?
Great question. Yes, it probably an equal amount of nervousness, just in a different area. I mean, I think, as a driver, you're focused on that day, and you're nervous about the out. You want to do your best. You're on the dance floor, and when that green flag drops, it's time to dance. And but as an owner, your nervousness is let's just say it's more modulated over an entire season of trials and tribulations and ups and downs, and you just hope to moderate them as best you can.
Over the course of the practice itself and going into qualifying, have you ever, Chip? Do you guys ever feel like you have, going into a race, the perfect car and the perfect setup, or is it a constant chase?
It's a constant chase, Jake. I mean, these cars today are so fickle that, the speeds you're going, you're constantly tuning the car for the condition. These things today, the engines are such a high performance tool that, when the sun goes behind a cloud, just that 1 degree change in the ambient temperature can affect the engines. So it's, you're constantly tuning for the condition that the cars are in. You never feel like you're there. And the minute you do, you're going to find yourself sadly disappointed in an outcome because, it's the same with strategy and with tuning the car. You're constantly tuning for that moment in the condition.
Do you have superstitions?
I don't know that I have superstitions, but I have a few things that I do that seem to become a habit on a race morning or a race day. Yes, but I don't think I'm very superstitious. I try to avoid that kind of thing because I don't want to jinx anything.
Give me one of your habits. Give me one of the things that makes you peculiar.
One of the things that make me peculiar. Well, I have lots of those. Where do you want to start?
I was going to say, I looked up and I thought, well, the show's over at 3. I might be in trouble here, right?
How much time do you have? Yeah.
Yeah. But, okay, give me one thing that on race morning, though, that you do make certain of. You're like, you know what, I'm going to go about doing this because it's worked out well for me in the past.
Well, I try not to suffer any fools on race morning. We have lots of people here, and we're entertaining lots of people. But the fact of the matter is, I'm focused on the things at hand. And it's almost as a team owner, it's out of your control. The closer you get to the green flag, really after the last practice, after the last race meeting, the last debrief, things are out of my control, and it's hard to have an effect on anything. The team takes over, and we have 150 plus team members on site here, and you're just hoping that everybody has a clean day. We like to have an uneventful day. If you have an uneventful day, you're going to have a good race.
Chip, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about this with the Indy 500 coming up, obviously. But there was, as you know, I'm sure you're aware of this, in Racer. And I've talked with Sage Karam about this in the past, and I've always appreciated his transparency. But there were a lot of headlines made yesterday because Sage did a pretty big interview with Racer where he talked about just the emotional challenge for him of overcoming the nightmare of that accident that unfortunately fatally injured Justin Wilson back in Pocono, and Sage was driving for you when it happened. Just wanted your overall thoughts on that journey for Sage, and in addition to that, for a really young driver at that time, your recollection of having to be there for him as a support staff and letting them know that it was an accident and not an intentional, and that it's a terrible part of the sport.
It's certainly a terrible part of the sport, and none of us are ever prepared for it. I think it's all in the back of our minds that those things can happen, those accidents can happen, and for Sage, at such a young age to experience something like that is difficult and traumatic, but he understands that it was an accident, and at the end of the day, accidents do happen. Everybody in this sport is aware of that. It had nothing to do with Sage or his performance or otherwise. The good news is he's got a good support system around him, a good family, and I think they were all there for him as we were, and. It was just an unfortunate thing that day. Yeah.
A year ago, you got the win with Alex Palou. He starts on pole. You've got Scott Dixon. You've got Kiffin Simpson. You got 3 pretty good ones loaded up, man. And it's going to be a ton of fun, the 110th running. And I can speak, Chip, from a media standpoint in saying I appreciate your accessibility throughout the course of the year. But I think I also represent race fans in general in just saying, for you and all of the owners, thanks again to the commitment and putting on what has become and always will be the signature moment for this city in terms of the calendar year. Look forward to it and certainly wish you the best of luck.
Thanks, Jake, and thanks for everything. We'll look forward to seeing you Sunday, hopefully at the end of the race in Winter Circle.
Sounds good. That's Swig of Milk for Chip Ganassi. Appreciate it, Chip. Chip Ganassi joining me on the program.